Chapter 16. Nicky was tucking in her blouse as she sailed down her front steps, raced to the cruiser, and asked the cops for a lift. They were glad to have their monotony broken and roared off with her and back. At 5 a.m. the northbound traffic was light on the West Side Highway, and they hauled ass. "I know the area. There's no vehicle access from this direction," Nicky told the driver. "Instead of killing time looping back from 96th, hop off at the next exit. When you get to the bottom of the ramp, I'll get out and hoof it the rest of the way." The officer was still braking at the bottom of the 79th Street off-ramp when he told him she was good to go. She called over her shoulder to say thanks for the ride. Soon Nicky was running under the highway, scuffing over dried pigeon droppings on her way to the river and the police lights in the distance. Lauren Perry was working Pachenko's body when Nicky jogged up, panting and sweaty from her sprint. "Catch your breath, Nick. He's not going anywhere," said the M.E. "I was ready to call about our man here, but Ochoa beat me to it." Detective Ochoa joined them. "Looks like this guy won't be bothering you anymore." Heat circled around to look at the corpse. The big Russian was slumped to one side on a park bench facing the Hudson. It was one of those picturesque rest stops on the slope of grass between the bike path and the bank of the river. Now it was Pachenko's final rest stop. He had changed clothes since the night he tried to kill her. His cargo shorts and white T-shirt looked brand new, which was how criminals on the run dressed, using stores as their closets. Pachenko's outfit was right off the shelf, except it was covered in blood. "The Homeless Outreach Patrol found him," said Ochoa. "They've been making rounds trying to get guys into the cooling shelters." He couldn't resist adding, "Looks like he's going to stay nice and cool." Nicky understood Ochoa's dark humor, but seeing the body didn't put her in a sporting mood. Whatever he had been, Vitya Pachenko was a dead human now. Any personal relief she felt about the end of his threat was just that, personal. He was now in the category of crime victim, and was owed justice like anyone else. One of Nicky Heat's talents for the job was her ability to put her own feelings in a box and be a professional. She looked at Pachenko again and realized she was going to need a bigger box. "What do we have?" she asked Lauren Perry. The M.E. beckoned Nicky around behind the bench. "Single gunshot to the back of the head." The sky was starting to brighten, and the buttermilk light gave Nicky a clearer view of the bullet hole in Pachenko's brush cut. "There's muzzle burn," she said. "Right, so it was extremely close range, and look at his body position. Big bench, he had the whole damn thing to himself, but he's all the way on one end." Heat nodded. Someone was sitting with him. "No sign of struggle?" "None," said the M.E. "So it's most likely a friend or associate to get that close." "Close enough for a sneak attack," said Ochoa. "Bring it up behind and pop." He gestured behind him at the West Side Highway, which was already filling with morning commuters. "No witnesses, traffic noise covered the shot. Don't see a DOT cam aimed this way either." "What about the gun?" Nicky asked the M.E. "Small caliber. I'd call it a .25 if you put a gun in my head." "Lauren, honey, you need to get out more." "I would, but business is too good." Then she pointed at the dead Russian. "This facial burn and the broken finger, your work?" He nodded. "Anything else I should know about?" "Yeah," said Ochoa. "Don't mess with Nicky Heat." Rook was waiting back at the precinct when she and Ochoa came in. "I heard about Pachenko." He bowed his head grandly. "I'm sorry for your loss." Ochoa laughed. "Hey, writer monkey's catching on." Again Nicky ignored the gallows humor. "Ochoa, double-check the tale we have on Myrick. He's Pachenko's known associate. I want to know where his boogie pal was when he was shot." Detective Ochoa hit the phones. Rook brought a Dean and DeLuca cup to Heat's desk. "Here, I got you your usual. A non-fat, no-foam, double-pump vanilla latte. You know how I feel about frou-frou coffees. And yet you have one every morning. Such a complex woman." She took it from him and sipped. "Thanks, very thoughtful." Her phone rang. "And next time remember the chocolate shavings." "So complex," he said. Nicky picked up. It was Rayleigh. "Two things," he said. "I've got Agda waiting in the outer." "Thanks, I'll be right there. And the other?" "Before I went home last night, I hocked one of that Chinese." Agda Larson had dressed up for her interview. She wore vintage wear from the East Village, accessorized with a pink and white Swatch beach volleyball watch on one wrist and a knotted twine bracelet on the other. She pinch-rolled one of the knots between her thumb and finger and said, "Am I in some sort of trouble?" "No, this is just a formality." That was only partially true. Nicky was basically crossing T's with this interview. However, she did want to satisfy one question, the nagging one. She would work it in at the right time. "How are you coping with all this? Between the murder and the burglary, you must be ready to go right back to Sweden." Agda wagged her head in disbelief at it all. "Oh, it is quite upsetting, yes. But we have murder in my country, too. Almost 200 last year, they say." "In the entire country?" "Yes, isn't that terrible? It is everywhere. Agda, I want to ask you some questions about life inside the Starr family." She nodded slowly. "Mrs. Kimberly said you would want to do that when I told her I was coming here." Nicky's antenna went up. "Did she caution you against talking about those things?" "No, she said to say what I wanted." "She said that?" The nanny chuckled and shook her blonde hair so it fell straight. "Actually, she said it did not matter because the police are incompetent and they could eat it." Agda read Nicky's lack of amusement and frowned, a futile attempt to look serious. "She says what she likes, Mrs. Starr." "And gets what she wants," thought Heat. "How long have you worked for her?" 2 years. "How is your relationship with her?" "Oh, she can be tough. Out of nowhere she'll snap at me. 'Agda, get Matthew out of here to the park.' Or she knocks on my bedroom door in middle of the night. 'Agda, Matthew got sick and threw up. Come clean it.' Day before yesterday, Mrs. Starr and her son went out of town." "That's right. They went to Dr. Van Pelt's beach cottage in Westport in Connecticut." "You didn't leave with them. Did you meet up with them there or possibly at Grand Central?" Agda shook no. "I did not go with them." "What did you do?" "I stayed the night with a friend at NYU." Heat jotted NYU in her notebook. "Is that unusual? I mean, if Mrs. Starr is knocking on your door at night with child care issues, I'm betting she takes you along on her out-of-town trips." "This is true. Usually I go on vacations and trips so she can enjoy herself and not be bothered with the son. But not that day." Nicky got to what was nagging her. "Was there a reason she didn't want you to be with her?" The detective eyed her keenly and continued, "Like some reason Mrs. Starr didn't want you around." "No, I only stayed behind so I could handle the piano delivery. She wanted Matty to get off the computer and get some culture, so she bought him a grand piano. It is gorgeous. When they took it out of the crate, I almost fainted. It must have cost a fortune." Grief takes many forms, thought Nicky. "Tell me about your relationship with Matthew Starr." "Oh, much what you would expect. He likes me, but calls me names when I tell him to go to bed, or to turn off the sweet life of Zach and Cody for dinner." She raised questioning eyebrows to Nicky. "You mean like that?" Detective Heat made a mental note that she was not sitting across the table from the poet laureate of Sweden. "Thank you. Now, let me ask you about Matthew Starr Sr. What kind of relationship did you have with him?" "Oh, that was a very good one." "In what way?" "Well, he was very kind to me. Mrs. Starr, she snaps her fingers and she's all like, 'Agda do this,' or 'Agda keep him quiet. I'm having my yoga time.'" "Agda? About Mr. Starr?" "Mr. was always sweet. He would comfort me after she yelled at me. Mr. Starr would give me some extra money and treat me to a dinner on my night off, or take me shopping for clothes, or see, he gave me this watch." "Was Mrs. Starr aware of this?" "Oh, dvartum no. Matthew said to keep it only to us." Nicky was amazed by her guileless sharing and decided to keep that ball rolling. "Was your relationship with Mr. Starr ever physical?" "Of course." "To what extent?" "He would rub my shoulders to comfort me after I got yelled at. Sometimes he would hug me or stroke my hair. It was very soothing. He was so gentle." "How old are you, Agda?" 21. "Did you and Matthew Starr ever sleep together?" "You mean have sex? Shit, nay. That would not be appropriate." There had obviously been some raucous laughter and jock-snapping going on in the observation room during her interview with the nanny to the Starrs. It carried back to the bullpen when Roach and Rook followed her there. "What's your take on Agda?" asked Rayleigh. Rook considered and said, "She's like Swedish furniture, beautiful to look at, but pieces missing." "My favorite part," added Ochoa, "was hearing how this guy was basically horn-dogging her under his wife's nose, and she says she didn't have sex with him because it would be inappropriate." "That's called horn-doggus interruptus," said Rayleigh from over at the coffee pot. And I think Agda's just one of the deals Matthew Starr never got a chance to close before he was killed. Rook turned to Nicky. Hard to believe she's from the same land that brought us the Nobel Prize. Did she tell you anything useful? You never know until you know, said Heat. The theme from Ghostbusters by Ray Parker Jr. started to play. Rook, please tell me that's not coming from your pants, she said. Custom ringtone, like it? He held up his cell phone. The caller ID read Casper. Ghostbusters, get it? Excuse me, Detective Heat. My source may have information related to this case. Rook strode off to take his call with an air of smugness. In less than a minute he returned, still on the phone but stripped of arrogance. But I was the one who introduced you to her. Can't you just tell me? He closed his eyes and sighed. Fine. Rook extended his phone to Nicky. He says he'll only share this with you. This is Nicky Heat. A pleasure, Detective. First, assure me that Jameson Rook is in anguish. She looked at Rook, chewing his lower lip, straining to eavesdrop. Quite. Good. If anyone ever needed a swift dismount from a high horse, it is he. The old man's soft, smoky tone warmed her ear. Hearing Casper without seeing him isolated his voice, and she heard David Bowie with notes of Michael Caine's mellowness. To business, he said. After your visit, I burned some midnight oil because I could tell time was pressing on you. Never had a case where it wasn't, said the detective. And although you downplayed it, you do believe there is a murder connected to this art theft. Yes, I downplayed it, and yes, I believe it. Perhaps 2 murders. A wonderful art appraiser, a fine woman who knew her business, was killed this week. Nicky jumped to her feet. Do you know anything about that? No. I only knew Barbara from occasional meetings years ago. But she was among the best. Let's say knowing her death might be part of this only engages me more in your investigation. Thanks for that. Please call me with anything you find out. Detective, I have information right now. Trust me, I wouldn't have wasted either of our times unless I could provide substance. Nicky flipped open her pad. Has someone already tried to fence the paintings? Yes and no, answered Casper. Someone did sell just one of the paintings, the Jacques-Louis David, but that sale took place 2 years ago. Nicky began to pace. What? And you're absolutely sure of this? There was a pause and a half before the dapper art thief replied. My dear, think of what you know about me and consider if you truly require an answer to that question. Point made, said Nicky. I'm not doubting you, I'm just confused. How can a painting be in Matthew Starr's collection if it was sold 2 years ago? Detective, you're smart. How good are you at math? Pretty good. Then your answer is to do some. And then Casper hung up. Chapter 17. The receptionist at Starr Real Estate Development popped back on and told Detective Heat that Paxton would be right with her. Nicky felt like she was straining at a leash. Even hearing Anita Baker on the hold music didn't soothe her. It wasn't the first time in her life she seemed to be moving at a different pace than the rest of the world. Hell, it wasn't even the first time that day. At last a ring through. Hi, sorry about the wait. I'm buttoning up a lot of Matthew's affairs. That could have so many meanings, she thought. Last call, I promise. It's no bother, honest. Then he laughed and said, Although what? I wonder if it would be easier if I just set up my office over there at your precinct. Nicky laughed too. You could. You have the better view, but we have nicer furniture. How sad is that? I'll stick with the view. So tell me how I can help you, Detective. I was hoping you could look up the name of the company that insured Matthew's art collection. Sure thing. He paused. But you recall I told you he had me cancel that policy. Yes, I know. I just want to ask them if they kept documentary photos of the collection I can use to hunt it down. Oh, pictures, right. Never thought of that. Good idea. Got a pen? Ready. It's Goth American Insurance here in Manhattan. She heard sharp keystrokes, and he continued, Ready for the phone number? After she took it down, Nicky said, May I ask you one more question? It will save me a call later. She could hear the smile in his voice when Noah answered. I doubt that, but go ahead. Did you cut a check for Kimberly Starr to buy a piano recently? A piano? And then he repeated, A piano? No. Well, she bought one. He looked at the CSI photo in her hand of the Star living room. It's a beaut, a Steinway Karl Lagerfeld edition. Kimberly, Kimberly, Kimberly. These list for $80,000. How could she afford that? Welcome to my world, detective. Not the craziest thing she's done. Want to hear about the speedboat she bought last fall in the Hamptons? But where did she get the money? Not from me. Nikki checked her watch. She might be able to get to the insurance folks before lunch. Thanks, Noah. That's all I need. Until next time, you mean? Sure you don't want to set up a desk over here? She said. They were both laughing when they hung up. Heat punctuated her yes with a fist pump when Rayleigh finished his call to the archives manager at Goth American. They not only routinely maintained photographic documentation of insured art collections, they held them for 7 years following the cancellation of a policy. How soon can we get them? Faster than you can microwave my leftovers, said Rayleigh. She pressed her detective. Exactly how soon? The archive manager is emailing them to me as an attachment now. Forward it to forensics as soon as it comes. Already had Goth American do a CC to them, he said. Rayleigh, you are the czar of all media. He clapped him on the shoulder. She grabbed her bag and hurried out to forensics, brushing past Rook on his way in without seeming to notice him. The world still hadn't caught up to Heat speed. When Nikki was closing in, it had little chance. Detective Heat returned to the bullpen from forensics an hour and a half later, wearing the game face Rook had seen when she was staging for the body shop raid. What did you learn? He asked. Oh, just that Matthew Starr's art collection was all forgeries. He sprang to his feet. The whole collection? Fakes. She slung her bag in the back of her chair. The ones in the insurance pictures are real. The ones in Barbara Deerfield's camera, not so much. That's big. It sure provides a motive for someone to murder an art appraiser. He gestured, punctuating with his forefinger. I was thinking the same thing. Oh, you were you? I'm a trained journalist. I'm capable of reading clues too, you know. He was getting cocky, and she decided to have some fun with him. Great. Then tell me who had the motive. You mean who murdered Barbara Deerfield? Pachenko. On his own initiative? Doubt that. He pondered and said, What do you think? I'll tell you what I think. I think it's too early to go shooting my mouth off. She went to the board and put a check mark beside her notation to screen the insurance photos. He followed her like a puppy, and she smiled to herself. But you're onto something, aren't you? He said. She just shrugged. Do you have a suspect in mind? Nikki flashed a grin and walked back to her desk. He trailed her and said, You do? Who is it? Rook, aren't you doing this whole ride-along so you can get into the mind of a homicide detective? Yeah? Just telling you wouldn't be helping you. Know what would help you? For you to think like a homicide detective and see what you come up with on your own. Nikki picked up her desk phone and pushed a speed dial button. Rook said, That sounds like a lot of work. She held up a staying palm while she listened to a ring at the other end of the line. He brought his knuckle up and pushed it to his lips, agonized. She loved driving Rook crazy like this. It was fun, and besides, if she was wrong, she didn't want him to know. Finally, someone picked up. Hi, it's Detective Heat at the 2-0. I want to arrange for transport of a prisoner you're holding. His name's Buckley. Gerald Buckley. Yeah, I'll hold. While she was waiting, Rook said, Aren't you beating a dead horse? That guy's not going to tell you anything, especially with that ambulance chaser of his. Nikki beamed a smug grin. Ah, but that was yesterday in interrogation. Today we're going to stage a little theater. What kind of theater? A play, as in, she switched to an Elizabethan accent. The play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. Then she added, That would be Buckley. You really wanted to be an actress, didn't you? Maybe I am, said Nikki. Come along and see. Heat, Roach, and Rook were waiting in the hallway of the office of the chief medical examiner in Kips Bay when the corrections officers delivered Gerald Buckley with his attorney in tow. Nikki looked him up and down. Coveralls flatter you, Mr. Buckley. Rikers all it's cracked up to be? Buckley turned his head away from Heat, the way dogs do, when they're pretending they didn't deliver the nearby turd to the new carpet. His lawyer stepped between them. I've advised my client not to answer any further questions. And if you have a case, bring it. But no more interviews unless you have lots of time to waste. Thanks, counselor. This isn't going to be an interview. No interview? That's right. The detective waited as his lawyer and Buckley traded confused looks. Then she said, "Step this way." Nicky led the entourage, Buckley, his lawyer, Roach, and Rook, into the autopsy room, where Lauren Perry stood beside a stainless table with a sheet over it. "Hey, what are we doing in here?" said Buckley. "Gerald," said the lawyer, and he pursed his lips. Then she turned to Nicky. "What are we doing in here?" "They pay you to do that? Repeat what he says?" "I demand to know why you dragged my client down here to this place." Nicky smiled. "We have a body that needs identification. I believe Mr. Buckley may be able to provide it." Buckley leaned toward his attorney's ear and got as far as muttering, "I don't want to see any," when he'd signaled Lauren Perry, who whipped the sheet off the table and revealed a corpse. Vitya Pochenko's body was still clothed as they had found him. Nicky had phoned ahead to debate the subject with her friend, who felt that naked for the autopsy was an impactful display that was tough to beat. Heat managed to persuade her that the great lake of dried blood on his white T-shirt told a better story, and so that was the presentation the M.E. made. The Russian lay on his back, eyes left open to make the maximum impression, the irises fully dilated, leaving only pupil, the effect exhibiting the darkest window to his soul. All color was gone from his face except for blotches of deep empurplement near one jaw, where gravity had pooled blood in the direction of his bench slump. Then there was that gruesome butterscotch and salmon burn welt covering one side of his face. Nicky watched the color drain from Gerald Buckley's cheeks and lips, until he was only about 2 hardware store paint chips from matching Pochenko. "Detective Heat, if I may interrupt," said Lauren, "I may have a determination on the caliber of the weapon." "Excuse us just one moment," Nicky said to Buckley. He took a hopeful half-step to the door, his disbelieving eyes still riveted on the body. Ochoa stepped to corral him, and he stopped without contact. Gerald Buckley stayed put, staring. His lawyer had found a chair and was sitting sideways, at a right angle to the play. Nicky snapped on a pair of gloves and joined the M.E. at her table. Lauren placed expert fingertips on Pochenko's skull and gently rotated it to expose the bullet hole behind his ear. A small puddle of brain fluid pooled on the gleaming stainless steel under the wound, and Buckley moaned when he saw it. "I did critical measurements and ballistics comparisons after our on-site angle of entry reconstruction." 25? asked Nicky. 25. Mighty small caliber to bring down such a big man. The medical examiner nodded. But a small caliber round delivered to the brain can be remarkably effective. In fact, one of the highest one-shot stop ratings is the Winchester X-25. In the metal pan of the hanging scale, Heat could see Buckley's reflection, craning to hear every bit as Lauren continued. "That round is fabricated like a hollow point, but the hollow is filled with a steel BB to aid expansion inside the body once the slug is delivered." "Whoa, when that puppy hit his brains, it must have been like taking a hammer to a plate of scrambled eggs," said Rayleigh. Buckley was regarding him with fearful eyes, so the detective added, for good measure, "Like the front row of a Gallagher concert in there." "Quite," said Lauren. "We'll know more once we cut open his brain for the treasure hunt, but one of those slugs would be my guess." "But such a small gun would mean whoever did this knew they'd get a chance to work close." "Sure," said Lauren. "Definitely knew what they were doing. Small caliber mouse gun, easy to conceal. Victim never sees it coming. Could be any time, anywhere." "Pop," said Ochoa. Buckley yipped and flinched. Heat crossed over to him, making sure to leave an unobstructed view of the dead Russian. The doorman was a fish on a dock. His lips opened and closed, but no sound came. "Can you positively identify this man?" Buckley belched, and Nicky was afraid he'd Ralph on her, but he didn't, and it seemed to help him locate his voice. "How could somebody get to Pochenko?" "People involved in this case are dying, Gerald. Are you sure you don't want to give me a name to help stop this before you join them?" Buckley was incredulous. "He was a wild animal. He laughed when I called him the Terminator. Nobody could kill him." "Somebody did. Single shot to the head. Bet you know who." She waited a 3 count and said, "Who hired you to steal that art collection?" The lawyer got to her feet. "Don't answer that." "Maybe you don't know who," he'd said. Her tone was all the more intimidating because she was so casual. Instead of shouting or grilling him, She was washing her hands of him. "I'm thinking we're chasing our tails. We should spring you, bail you out on your own recognizance, let you think things over out there. See how long you last." "Is that a bona fide offer, Detective?" asked the attorney. "Ochoa, get the keys to unlock his handcuffs." Behind him, Ochoa rattled a set of keys, and Buckley recoiled, hunching his shoulders at the sound, as if it was a bullwhip cracking. "Isn't that what you want, Gerald?" The man was swaying where he stood. White saliva strings connected the roof of his mouth to his tongue. "Wait," Buckley swallowed. "What's happened to his—" He gestured up and down his own face to indicate the burn area on Pachenko. "Oh, I did that," said Nicky, sounding casual. "Burned his face with a hot iron." He looked at Lauren, who nodded affirmation. Then he looked at Heat, and then Pachenko, and back to Heat. "All right." "Gerald," the lawyer said, "shut up." He turned to her. "You shut up." Gerald Buckley then looked at Nicky and spoke, gently, resigned. "I'll tell you who hired me to steal that art." Nicky turned to Rook. "You'll excuse us, won't you? I need you to wait outside while Mr. Buckley and I talk." Chapter 18. On the drive back from the ME's office, Nicky didn't need to turn around to know Rook was pissed off in the back seat. She was dying to, though, because seeing his torment would have added to her wicked pleasure. Ochoa was sitting back there with him and said, "Hey, Holmes, you carsick or something?" "No," said Rook, "unless I caught a chill when I got sent out in the hall when Buckley was going to talk." Heat wanted to turn around so bad. "Some play. You kicked me out during the last scene." Rayleigh braked at the light on 7th Avenue and said, "Hey, when a subject's about to open up, the fewer the better. You especially don't want a reporter there." Nicky leaned back on the headrest and scoped the digital temperature on the Jumbotron outside Madison Square Garden. 99 degrees. "You probably know who Buckley named anyway, right, Rook? Tell me and I'll let you know." That brought a round of chuckles inside the Crown Vic. Rook snorted. "When did this become a hazing?" "It's not a hazing," she said. "You want to be with all the detectives, right? Do what we do and think like one." "Except Rayleigh," said Ochoa. "He doesn't think right." "I'll even help you out," said Heat. "What do we know? We know the paintings were fake. We know they were gone when Buckley's crew got there. Shall I go on, or do you have it figured?" The light changed, and Rayleigh drove on. "I'm developing a theory," Rook said. At last she hooked her elbow over the seat to face him. "That doesn't sound exactly like naming a name." "All right, fine." He paused and blurted, "Agda." Rook waited for a response and just got stares, so he filled the silence. "She had full access to that apartment that day, and I've been thinking about her interview. I don't buy the naive nanny pose and the innocent shoulder rubs. That girl was dueling Matthew Starr, and I think he dumped her like he did all his mistresses, only she got pissed enough to want some payback." Heat said, "So Agda had him killed?" "Yes, and stole the paintings." "Interesting." She thought a moment. "And I guess you also figured out why Agda killed the art appraiser, and how she got the paintings out." Rook's eyes lost contact with hers and fell to his shoes. "I haven't plugged every hole. This is still a theory." She looked around to poll her colleagues. "It's a process. We get it. But am I right?" "I don't know. Are you?" Then she turned all the way around so he wouldn't see her smile. Rook and Detectives Rayleigh and Ochoa had to hustle to keep stride with Heat when they got back to the precinct. As soon as she entered the bullpen, Nicky beelined for her desk and pulled open the file drawer. "All right, now I've got it," said Rook as he arrived in her wake. "When did Agda start working for the Starr family?" 2 years ago. Heat didn't bother to face him. She was occupied sorting through pictures in a file. "And when did Casper say that painting was fenced?" "That's right, 2 years ago." Rook waited, but she just kept shuffling her deck of pictures. "And Agda got the paintings out of the Guilford because she doesn't work alone. I think our Swede could be part of some art theft ring, an international art theft and forgery ring." "Uh-huh." "She's young, she's pretty, she gets into the homes of wealthy people and has access to their artwork. She's their inside man. Woman. Nanny. Why would an international forgery ring be dumb enough to steal a bunch of fakes? They weren't fakes when she stole them." He crossed his arms, quite satisfied with himself. I see, said the detective. And don't you think they'd notice their nanny going out of the apartment with a painting, or the space gaping on the wall? He reflected, then shut down. You have a question for everything, don't you? Rook, if we don't poke holes, the defense attorneys will. That's why I need to build a case. Didn't I just do that for you? Notice I'm still building. She found the picture she was looking for and slipped it into an envelope. Roach. Rayleigh and Ochoa stepped over to her desk. You're taking the Roach coach on a short drive out of town with this photo of Gerald Buckley. Go to that place he mentioned back at the ME's. Shouldn't be hard to find. Show the picture, see if you get any hits, and then I want you back here pronto. Going out of the city? How'd I miss that? All right, Buckley, freeze out again, said Rook. Let me guess. You're going to see if Agda lied about NYU and was really somewhere else with the paintings? Rayleigh, do you have a map? I don't need a map. No, but Rook does, said Heat. He's been all over his. After Rayleigh and Ochoa left, she put the file away in her desk. Rook was still lurking. What are we going to do? Nicky indicated a chair. We? We, which is to say you, are going to park your Pulitzer Prize-winning butt and stay out of my way while I scare up some warrants. Rook took a seat. Arrest warrants, plural? Search warrants, plural. I need 2 of them plus a warrant for a wiretap. She looked at her watch and whispered a curse. Days half shot and I need them like now. I believe I can be of service if you're in a hurry. No, Rook. It's cake. I said no, stay out of this. I did it before, ignoring my instructions, and getting you your warrant. He glanced around to make sure the bullpen was empty and lowered his voice. After the other night, aren't we past this? Don't even. Let me help you. No, do not call Judge Simpson. Give me one good reason. Because now that the judge and I are poker buddies, she grinned and picked up her phone, I can call him myself. You sleep with me. Then you make fun of my theories and steal all my friends. Rook leaned back and crossed his arms. Just for that, you're not meeting Bono. Horace Simpson came through with the warrants, accompanied by a judicial warning that Heat had better get her hiney back to Rook's poker table so he could win back his losses. And to think all these years the detective had been going through channels to reach judges. Getting the search warrants in hand turned out to be the easy part. Her wiretap required time to set up, meaning several hours of waiting. Not Nicky Heat. She strode into the bullpen from Captain Montrose's office and grabbed her bag. What now? Asked Rook. Cap sprung a team off patrol for me. We're rolling to execute my search warrants. When he stood up to join her, she said, Sorry, Rook, we're at a critical phase. This is police only. Come on, I'll stay in the car, I promise. It's hot, but just leave the window open a crack for me. They say that's dangerous, but I'm tough. I'll bring water. You're better off right here reviewing your evidence. You've got the whiteboard to study. You've got air conditioning, and you'll have time. Lots of time. As she crossed the room with her back to him, she said, Remember, think like a detective. You might as well take me. I know where you're going. That stopped her. When she turned to face him from the doorway, he said, The Guilford, and to a personal storage place on Varick. She looked down at her bag. You snooped my warrants, didn't you? His turn to grin. Just thinking like a journalist. 2 hours later, Heat returned to find Rook staring at the whiteboard. Come up with any more theories while I was out? In fact, yes. She went to her desk and checked her voicemail. Her mailbox was empty. Nicky tossed the handset onto the cradle in frustration and looked at her watch. You all right? Trouble with your search warrants? Au contraire, she said. I'm just stressing my wiretap. The other stuff went great. Better than great. What'd you find? You first. What's your new theory? Well, I've been thinking it all over, and now I know who it is. Not Agda? Why, is it Agda? Rook. Sorry, okay. This is off the wall. I'm off Agda, but I'm thinking about something she said about the new piano. This piqued Nicky's interest. She sat against the edge of her desk with her arms folded. Am I getting warmer? He asked. I know I'm not getting younger. Get to it. When you interviewed her, Agda said something like the new piano was so gorgeous she almost fainted when it came out of the crate. He paused. Who delivers pianos in crates anymore? Nobody. Interesting. Go on. In fact, these were waters she was fishing in, and Nicky was curious to hear his take. We know the piano came in because we saw it there after the theft, so I got to wondering, why bring in a crate unless something is going to go out in it after you remove the piano from it? And so now you are saying it's who? Obviously, the piano company is a front for art thieves. Is that your final answer? The flat-out expression she showed him made Rook backpedal so fast Nicky wanted to burst out laughing, but she held her poker face. Or, he said, let me finish, you served a warrant at the Guilford and at a personal storage place. I'm sticking with my piano crate scenario, but I say it's Kimberly Starr. Although her face remained neutral, Rook became animated. I'm right, I know it, I can see it all over you. Tell me I'm wrong then. I'm not telling you squat. Rayleigh and Ochoa came into the bullpen. Heat started over to them. Why spoil the fun? Rayleigh and I showed around Buckley's picture, said Ochoa. We scored 2 positive hits. That doesn't suck. Doesn't suck at all. Nicky dared to let herself feel the thrill of gathering momentum on the case. And they'll testify? Affirm, said Rayleigh. Nicky's desk phone rang, and she lunged for it. Detective Heat. She kept nodding as if the caller could see her and said, Excellent, great, excellent, thanks much. When she hung up, she turned to her team. Wiretaps up. We're going to the dance. For once, things were moving at heat speed. Nicky and Rook sat wedged into a corner of the tiny room, knee to knee on metal folding chairs behind the police technician who was recording the calls. The AC vent whistled, so Heat had had the air turned off to let her hear without that distraction, and it was suffocating in there. A blue LED meter spiked on the console. Picking up, said the technician. Heat put on her headphones. The ring purred on the line. Her breathing became shallow the way it had on the raid in Long Island City, only this time she couldn't calm herself. Her heart thunked at a disco cadence until Nicky heard the click of the answer and one of the beats skipped. Hello? I'm using your direct line because I don't want the receptionist knowing I'm calling you, said Kimberly Starr. Okay. Noah Paxton sounded wary of her. I don't understand why not. Nicky hand-signaled the technician to ensure he was recording. He nodded. Kimberly continued. You're about to understand, Noah. Is something wrong? You sound strange. Nicky closed her eyes into a tight squint of concentration, wanting only to hear. With headphones on, the fidelity was iPod quality. She clocked every nuance. The air hiss of the office chair Noah was sitting in. The hard swallow that came from Kimberly. Now Nicky waited. Now she wanted words. I need your help with something. I know you always did things for Matthew, and now I want you to do the same for me. Things? His tone was still guarded. Come on, Noah, cut the shit. We both know Matt pulled a lot of crap that was shady, and you handled it. I need some of that from you now. I'm listening, he said. I have the paintings. Nicky caught herself making tension fists and loosened her grip. Paxton's office chair creaked. Excuse me? Am I not speaking English? Noah, the art collection. It wasn't stolen. I took it. I hid it. You? Not me personally. I had some guys do it while I went out of town. Forget all that. The thing is, I have them, and I want you to help me sell them. Kimberly, are you nuts? They're mine. I didn't get insurance. I deserve something out of all those years of that son of a bitch. Now it was Heat's turn to swallow hard. It was starting to come together. Her heart was punching to get out. What makes you think I'd know how to sell them? Noah, I need help. You were Matthew's fixer. Now I want you to be mine. And if you're not going to help me, I'll find someone who will. Whoa, Kimberly, slow down. Another pneumatic hiss, and Heat pictured Noah Paxton rising up behind his horseshoe-shaped desk. Don't call anybody. Are you listening to me? I'm listening, she said. We should talk this out. There's a solution to all this. You just need to keep your head. He paused and asked, Where are these paintings? A swell of anticipation gathered up Nicky and carried her until she felt suddenly weightless at its crest. A trickle of sweat curved around the vinyl ear seal of one of her headphones. The paintings are here, said Kimberly. And where's here? Say it, thought Nicky, say it. At the Guilford. Pretty cool, huh? All the searching they've been doing, and they never left the building. All right, listen to me. Don't call anybody. Just relax. We need to work this out face to face, okay? Okay. Good. Stay there. I'll be right over. And then he hung up. Nicky took off her headphones. When Rook removed his, he said, I called it. I was right. It was Kimberly. Ha-ha, where's my 5? He held up his palm to her. We don't do 5s. Rook stood. Listen, we better get over there before Noah. If this woman killed her husband, who knows what she'll do next? Nicky rose. Thanks for the pointer, Detective Rook. He held the door for her, and they strode out. Chapter 19. Heat, Rayleigh, Ochoa, and Rook crossed through the lobby of the Guilford to the elevators. When the doors opened, Nicky put the palm of her hand on Rook's chest. Whoa, where do you think you're going? With you. She shook her head. No way, you stay down here. The automatic doors kept trying to close. Ochoa braced them open with his shoulder to keep them from bouncing. Come on, I did what you said. I thought like a detective, and I deserve to be there when you take her down. I've earned that. When all 3 of the detectives broke into laughter, Rook walked it back a hair. How about I just wait in the hall? You told me you'd wait in the hall when I arrested Buckley. Okay, I got impatient once. And on our raid in Long Island City, what did you do after I told you to stay behind? Rook kicked the toe of his shoe against the lip of the rug. Look, this is starting to sound more like an intervention than an arrest. I promise we won't make you wait long. After all, she said with mock solemnity, you've earned that. She got in the elevator with Roach. Just for that, I may do my whole article about someone else. Break my heart, she said as the door shut on him. When Detective Heat entered through the front door of the apartment, she found Noah Paxton by himself in the living room. Where's Kimberly? She's not here. Rayleigh and Ochoa stepped in behind Nicky. Check all the rooms, she said. Ochoa disappeared with Rayleigh down the hallway. Kimberly's not back there, said Paxton. I already checked. Heat said, we're do-it-yourselfers. We're funny that way. Her gaze went to the room full of artwork hanging, as it always had been, floor to ceiling. Nicky marveled at the sight. The paintings, they're back. Noah seemed to share her bewilderment. I don't understand it either. I'm just trying to figure out where the hell they came from. Relax. You don't have to play act anymore, Noah. She watched the furrows crease his brow. They never left the Guilford, right? We tapped her phone call to you not 20 minutes ago. I see. He thought a few seconds, no doubt sorting through his side of the conversation, wondering if he could be an accessory after the fact. I told her she was nuts, he said. Now that's a good citizen. He opened his palms to her. I apologize, Detective. I knew I should have called you. Guess I still have my protective instinct for the family. I came over here to talk sense into her. Too late now. Nicky just shrugged. When did you find out she stole them? During that phone call? No, the alarm bells sounded for me when I heard our widow in mourning bought a piano and left town for the delivery. Does Kimberly strike you as someone who'd leave rearranging her precious antiques to a work crew and a dimwit nanny? Nicky ambled to the Steinway and tinkled one key. We checked with the building super. He confirmed the piano movers came here in the morning with a huge crate, but didn't recall them leaving with one. It fell off his radar, I guess, after all the confusion around the blackout. Noah smiled and shook his head. Wow. I know, pretty sneaky, huh? They never left the building. Ingenious, said Paxton. And not a word I associate with Kimberly Starr. Well, she wasn't as smart as she thought. What do you mean? Nicky had run this over and over in her head so that it was crystal clear to her. Now she would bring Noah along on the ride. Did you know Matthew had changed his mind about selling his collection? No, I didn't know anything about that. Well, he had. The same day he was killed, a woman from Sotheby's named Barbara Deerfield came over here to appraise it. She was murdered before she got back to her office. That's horrible. I believe her murder was connected to Matthew's. His brow darkened. It's tragic, but I don't understand the connection. Neither did I. I kept wondering, why would anyone kill an art appraiser? Then I discovered that Starr's entire art collection was made up of forgeries. Nicky watched a pallor wash out of Noah Paxton's face. Forgeries? He let his gaze wander the walls. Nicky saw his eye fall upon a piece of art near the archway, the one covered by a shroud. Fakes, Noah. His attention snapped back to her. The whole collection. How can that be? Matthew paid top dollar for these paintings and from reputable dealers. Paxton's color was coming back, and then some, as he grew more agitated. I can assure you, when we bought these, they were not fakes. I know, said the detective. The insurance documentation pictures bore that out. Then how could they now be fakes? Nicky sat on the arm of a sofa that cost more than most people's cars. The appraiser took her own set of photos of the collection as notes. We found her camera, and her pictures didn't match the insurance shots. She had documented a roomful of forgeries. He paused to let that sink in. Sometime between the purchase and her appraisal, someone switched the art. That's unbelievable. You're sure of this? Absolutely. And Barbara Deerfield would have come to the same conclusion if she had lived to study her pictures. In fact, said Nicky, I'd say that the reason Barbara Deerfield was killed was because somebody didn't want it to get out that the $60 million star collection was bogus. Are you saying Matthew was trying to palm off fakes? He shook her head no. Matthew never would have hired an appraiser if he knew they were fakes. And after all the money and ego he invested in his little Versailles, he'd have had a meltdown if he ever found out. Noah's eyes widened in revelation. Oh, my God, Kimberly. Nicky rose and strolled over to the John Singer Sergeant Oil of the Two Innocents, enjoyed it for just a glance, and said, Kimberly beat someone else to stealing that art collection. I arrested a second crew that broke in here later, during the blackout, and they found nothing but empty walls. Everyone went through a lot of trouble just to steal something that's worthless. Kimberly didn't know the paintings were worthless. The grieving Mrs. Starr thought she was scoring her multi-million-dollar lotto hit for a shitty marriage. Obviously, the other burglars thought it was valuable, too. Paxton gestured to the art. Otherwise, why would they try to steal it? Nicky stepped away from the painting and faced him. I don't know, Noah. Why don't you tell me? He took his time before he answered, looking at her to gauge if she was asking a rhetorical question or something with more stink on it. He couldn't have liked the way her eyes were boring into him, but he went for rhetorical. I could only guess. If her session at the medical examiner's that morning was theater, for Nicky, this was Brazilian jiu-jitsu and she was done boxing. On to the grappling. Do you know a Gerald Buckley? Paxton squeezed his mouth into an upside-down U. Doesn't sound familiar. Curious, Noah. Gerald Buckley knows you. He's the overnight doorman here. She watched him work his earnest face. Nicky found him almost convincing. He wasn't bad. She was better. Here's a refresher. Buckley's the man you hired to set up the second burglary during the blackout. That's a lie. I don't even know him. Now that is truly weird, said Ochoa from the archway. Paxton was edgy. He hadn't seen the other two detectives return, and he flinched when Ochoa spoke. Me and my partner took a drive up to Terrytown this afternoon. To a bar there. Rayleigh said, place called the Sleepy Swallow? Whatever, said Ochoa. Guess that's your regular hang, right? Everybody knows you. And the bartender and a waitress both ID'd Mr. Buckley sitting at your table for a very long time a few nights ago. During the blackout, added Rayleigh. About the time Buckley should have been in for that shift he canceled. Buckley is not your strongest point man, said Heat. Noah's eyes were getting less focused, and he whipped his head from detective to detective as each spoke, like he was following the ball at a tennis match. Dude caved like a sandcastle, added Ochoa. Buckley also says you called him up and told him to hurry over here to the Guilford and let Pachenko in the rooftop door. That was just before Matthew Starr was murdered, said Nicky. Pachenko? Who's Pachenko? Smooth. Not going to trip you up, am I? Said Heat. Pachenko's somebody whose picture you didn't recognize in my photo array, even though I showed his picture to you twice. Once here, once at your office. You're fishing. This is all speculation. You're putting everything on hearsay from a liar, an alcoholic who's desperate for money. Paxton was standing in a direct sun ray from one of the high windows, and his forehead glistened in the light. Yes, I'll admit I met this Buckley guy at the Swallow, but only because he was shaking me down. I used him a couple of times to arrange hookers for Matthew, and he was trying to extort hush money out of me. Paxton raised his chin and thrust his hands in his pockets. Body English, for that's my story and I'm sticking to it, thought Nicky. Let's talk about money, Noah. Remember that little transgression of yours my forensic accountants uncovered? That time when you fudged the books to hide a few $100,000 from Matthew? I already told you that was for his kid's college. Let's pretend that's the truth for now. Nicky didn't believe him, but was applying another rule of jiu-jitsu. When you're closing in for a takedown, don't get faked into a sucker hold. Whatever your reason, you managed to cover your tracks by putting that money back 2 years ago, right after one of the paintings from this collection, a Jacques-Louis David, got fenced for that exact amount. A coincidence? I don't believe in coincidences. Ochoa shook his head. No way. The detective is definitely not coincidence-friendly, said Rayleigh. Is that how you started, Noah? You needed a few grand, so you had one of his paintings forged, and then swapped it for the real one, which you sold? You said yourself that Matthew Starr was a Philistine. The man never had a clue the painting you put on his wall was a fake, did he? That's bold, said Ochoa. And you got bolder. After you saw how easy it was to get away with that, you tried it with another painting, and another, and then started flipping the whole collection like that, piece by piece over time. Do you know Alfred Hitchcock? Why, is he accusing me of the great train robbery? Somebody asked him once if the perfect crime had ever been committed. He said yes. And when the interviewer asked him what it was, Hitchcock said, we don't know. That's what makes it perfect. Nicky joined Ochoa and Rayleigh near the archway. I have to hand it to you. Swapping the real paintings for the fakes was the perfect crime, until Matthew suddenly decided to sell. Then your crime no longer would be secret. The appraiser had to be silenced first, so you had Pachenko kill her, and then you had Pachenko come here and throw Matthew over that balcony railing. Who is this Pachenko? You keep talking about this guy like I'm supposed to know who he is. Nicky beckoned him to her. Come here. Paxton hesitated, eyeing the front door, but he came over to stand near the archway with the detectives. Take a look at these paintings, any one you like. Noah, take a good long look. He leaned closer to one, gave it a cursory examination, then turned to her. Okay, so, he said, when Gerald Buckley gave you up, he also gave up the address of the storage facility where you instructed him to deliver the stolen paintings. Today I got a search warrant for it, and guess what I found there? She gestured to the collection hanging there in the glow of the orange light of the setting sun. The original Starr collection. Paxton tried to keep his cool, but his jaw dropped. He twirled to look again at the painting, and then the one beside it. That's right, Noah, these are the originals you stole. The forgeries are still in the piano crate in the basement. Paxton was coming unglued. He stepped from painting to painting, shaken, his breath rasping. Detective Heat continued, I must say that the storage facility you rented is first-rate. Climate-controlled, state-of-the-art fire technology, and very secure. They have the highest definition surveillance cameras I've seen. Look at one of the freeze frames I got off it. It's a small picture, but quite sharp. Paxton held out an unsteady hand. Nicky gave him a still frame print from the storage security camera. He became even more ashen. We're still going over their archives. So far, they have video of you bringing one piece of Matthew Starr's art into your storage unit about every 8 weeks. This particular shot of you was taken a month ago, carrying a very big painting. She pointed across the room to a large format canvas. It's that one over there. Paxton didn't even bother to turn. He just gaped at the photo in his hands. But that's not my favorite picture. This is my favorite. She nodded to Ochoa, who yanked the shroud off the frame on the wall beside him, revealing a blow-up of another security still. Time code says it was taken 1.6 seconds after the picture in your hands. That is one jumbo canvas, Mr. Paxton, too unwieldy and too valuable for one man to risk carrying it by himself. And look who that is coming around the corner, helping you by holding the back end. Paxton forgot all about the photo in his hands and let it flutter to the floor. He stared in disbelief at the framed surveillance picture on the wall of him carrying the painting, assisted, by Vitya Puchenko. He dropped his head and his body sagged. He fumbled to brace himself on the back of a sofa. Noah Paxton, you're under arrest for the murders of Matthew Starr and Barbara Deerfield. Nicky turned away from him to Rayleigh and Ochoa. Cuff it. Gun! Shouted Roach in tandem. Rayleigh and Ochoa went for their hips. Nicky already had her hand on her cig in its holster, but when she whirled back to Paxton, he was holding his gun on her. He got it from the couch cushion, said Rayleigh. Drop it, Paxton, said Heat. She didn't draw, but took a step closer, trying to position herself for a disarm. He took 2 steps back, well out of reach. Don't, he said. I'll do it, I will. His hand was quaking, and Nicky worried he'd fire by accident, so she stayed put. Plus Rayleigh and Ochoa were behind her. If she went for him, she would take the risk that a wild shot might hit one of them. Her plan was to buy time by keeping Paxton talking. This isn't going to work, Noah. It never does. It's only going to be ugly, said Ochoa. Don't be stupid, added Rayleigh. Quiet. Paxton took another backward step toward the front door. I know what you're doing. You're trying to think of a way out, but there isn't one. Behind her, Nicky could hear the soft rug steps of her 2 detectives slowly spreading out to flank Paxton. She engaged him to give them time. You should know there's a cruiser out front and cops in the lobby. It's the same detail that's been tailing you since this morning when Buckley tagged you. You two, stop. I swear if you move, I'll start shooting. Do what he says. He turned around to face them and said, You guys hear me? I mean it. Nicky used her rotation to block Paxton from seeing her unholster her cig. She let her hand drop to her side and held the gun tight against the back of her thigh when she faced Paxton again. Meanwhile, he had retreated another step. His free hand rested on the doorknob. Everybody back up. They held their positions. Nicky continued trying to talk him down, even as she gripped her weapon behind her. You're the expert with numbers, right? What do you think your odds are of making the street? Shut up, I'm thinking. No, you're not thinking. His hand started to shake even more. What's it matter? I'm screwed. But you're not dead. Would you rather leave this to your lawyer or your undertaker? He pondered a brief moment, moving his lips in some silent inner dialogue, and just when Nicky thought he might have come to his senses, he threw the front door open. She brought her piece up, but Paxton had already lunged behind the door and run out into the hallway. Everything that happened next happened fast. The door slammed hard as Nicky scrambled for it. Behind her, she heard guns clearing holsters, footfalls, and Rayleigh on his walkie-talkie. Suspect is 1032. Suspect is armed. Repeat, armed. With handgun on 6th floor. Detectives in pursuit. Heat slammed her back flat to the wall, shoulder even with the door frame, and her Sig Sauer up in an isosceles stance. Cover, she said. Ochoa performed like clockwork. He went low, crouching on one knee, fisting his Smith & Wesson in his right hand and grabbing the knob with his left. On yours, he said. Without pause, Detective Heat calmly said, Go. Ochoa pulled the door and held it open for her. Nicky pivoted around the jamb, squaring her aim up the hole. She stopped, still holding her combat stance, shook her head and mumbled, Mother. Ochoa and Rayleigh rolled out behind her and stopped too. Rayleigh spoke quietly into his radio. All units, we have a hostage. Rook was standing halfway up the hole with Paxton snug behind him, holding the gun to his head. He looked at Nicky sheepishly and said, So I'm gonna guess it's Noah. Chapter 20. Stop squirming, said Noah Paxton. Rook started to turn his head to say something to his assailant, but Paxton jammed the muzzle of the gun hard into his skull. Oh, hey. I said hold still, damn it. Do as he says, Rook. Nicky still had her Sig Sauer up, keeping a bead on the small sliver of Noah Paxton that was showing behind his human shield. She didn't need to turn to know that Rayleigh and Ochoa were doing the same thing with their weapons behind her. Rook raised his eyebrows contritely and looked at her like a kid who'd broken a living room lamp with a baseball. I am really sorry about this. Rook, be quiet, said Nicky. From now on, I'll do what I'm told. Start now by shutting up. Okay. Then he realized he was not shutting up. Oops, sorry. I want you to drop your guns, said Paxton. All of you. Heat didn't say no because a direct verbal confrontation could heighten tensions. Instead, she maintained her isosceles stance and let that be her answer. She spoke in a calm tone. "You're smart enough to know you're not getting out, Noah, so why don't you let him go and end this peacefully?" "You know, she makes sense," said Rook. Heat and Paxton told him to shut up at the same time. Paxton's left hand held a handful of the back of Rook's shirt in a bunch to keep him close. He gave it a tug. "Back up." When he didn't move, Noah gave a sharp pull. "I said move." "That's right. Go with me. Easy, easy." He led Rook backward, taking baby steps to the elevator. When he saw that the 3 detectives were moving forward, matching his pace, he stopped. "Hey, stay back." Heat and Roach stopped, but didn't retreat. "I'm not afraid to use this," Paxton warned. "Nobody said you were." She was calm, but sounded in command. "But you don't want to." Paxton moved the gun away slightly to adjust his grip, and Rook slid forward only to get jerked back. "Don't be stupid." Noah again pushed the muzzle hard against the soft bone behind Rook's ear. "All it takes is one. Do you have any idea what this will do to you?" Rook nodded as much as he dared. "Scrambled eggs." "What?" "Like a hammer hitting a plate of—" "Never mind, I don't want to talk about it." Paxton tugged his shirt again, and they continued to back toward the elevator. And again the detectives advanced with them. As they all drew closer to the elevator, Nicky looked at the panel above the door. It indicated that the car was waiting there on 6. He'd spoken in a barely audible voice. "Rails. Yo. Lose that car." Behind her, Rayleigh keyed his mic and spoke quietly. "Lobby. Call elevator down from 6 immediately." Paxton heard the elevator softly kick into motion right behind him. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" He turned quickly over his shoulder, in time to see the 6-digit go dark and the 5 light up. He didn't move enough for Nicky to get a clear shot, but while he was distracted, she took 2 steps closer. He turned back and saw her. "Stop right there." He'd stopped. She had closed the gap, and he was 10 feet away. Not close enough yet, but closer. She couldn't see Paxton's face, just his eye, looking wild, peeking out from the gap between the gun barrel and Rook's head. His voice was building to a rage. "Now you boxed me in." "You're not leaving, I told you that." She worked to keep the calm in her tone to counter his fury. "I'm going to shoot." "It's time to put your gun down, Noah. His blood will be on you." Rook made eye contact with her and mouthed, "Shoot him." She had no shot and said so with the smallest head shake. "You screwed up everything, Detective, you know that? I wish Pachenko would finish the job on you." Nicky's eyes fluttered and a weight sank in her gut. "You did that?" said Rook. "Let it go, Rook," said Nicky, struggling to let go of it herself. Behind her, she heard F-bombs muttered by Rayleigh and Ochoa. "You sent that animal to her apartment?" Rook's nostrils flared. "You sent him to her home?" His chest expanded with each breath as his outrage grew more heated. "You son of a bitch!" He spun his body away from the pistol, hurling himself. A loud gunshot echoed in the hall as Rook dropped hard to the floor. Paxton fell to one knee beside him, moaning, with blood streaming from his shoulder onto Rook. His gun was on the rug beside them, and Noah grabbed for it. Nicky lunged and body tackled him. She slammed Paxton onto his back and pinned him down with her knees on his chest. He had the gun in his hand, but he hadn't had time to raise it. She held her 6 sour inches from his face. His eyes flitted to his gun hand, calculating. "Go ahead," said Detective Heat. "I need a new blouse anyway." At La Chaleur, a sidewalk cafe outside the Guilford, the after-work crowd was craning to watch the police activity. The sun had just gone down, and in the quieting darkness, the flashing lights from the cruisers and ambulances reflected in their Cosmos and $18 glasses of Sancerre. Over between the cafe and the front steps of the apartment building, the lights strobed on the backs of 2 plainclothes cops facing Detective Heat. One of them put away his notebook. They each shook her hand. Nicky leaned back against the warm stone facade of the Guilford and watched the shooting investigation team cross away to their black-crowned Victoria. Rook stepped over and joined her. Go ahead. I need a new blouse anyway. I think that was cool for short notice. She tried to read him. What? Too girly? Got no his attention. He followed her gaze to the incident investigation pair as they drove off for downtown. Nobody told you to hand in your badge and gun, I hope. No, they expect this will clear just fine. They were actually amazed I didn't kill him. Didn't you want to? She thought a beat and said, He's alive. The detective let that simple fact provide all the details. If I need vengeance kicks, I just Netflix Charles Bronson or Jodie Foster. She turned to him. Besides, I was aiming at you. You're the one I wanted to kill. And I even signed that liability waiver. Lost opportunity, Rook. It's going to haunt me. Roach stepped out of the building and came over. Ochoa said, Paramedics are bringing him out now. Nicky waited until they carried Paxton's gurney down the steps and rolled it up to the curb before she walked over, followed by Rayleigh, Ochoa, and Rook. In the harsh utility light shining down from above the ambulance door, Noah's face was the color of an oyster. She checked with the paramedic standing with him. Is he okay for a quick chat? A minute or two, but that's it, said the EMT. Heat stood, so she loomed over him. Just want you to know one good thing came out of that little hostage drama up there. Your gun. It's a .25. Same caliber that killed Pachenko. We're running ballistics on it and giving you a paraffin test for gunpowder residue. What do you think we'll find? I have nothing to say. What, no spoilers? Fine, I can wait for the results. Do you want me to call you with them, or would you rather wait to hear them at your arraignment? Paxton looked away from her. Tell me, when you raced over here to get your hands on those paintings, were you going to use it on Kimberly Starr too? Is that why you had the gun with you? When he didn't answer, she spoke to her team. Kimberly owes me. Big time, said Rayleigh. Ochoa added, You probably saved her life when you arrested her. Noah rolled his head back to face her. You already arrested her? He nodded. This afternoon, right after I found the paintings in the basement. But that phone call to me, the one you wiretapped. She was already in custody. Kimberly made that call for me. Why? Why else? To get you to come to my art show. Nicky gave the sign to the paramedics and stepped away, so the last picture the detective saw was the look on Noah Paxton's face. The heat wave broke late that night, and it did not go quietly. As a front from Canada bullied its way down the Hudson, it collided with the hot, stagnant air of New York and spawned an aerial show of lightning, swirling winds, and sideways rain. TV meteorologists patted themselves on the back and pointed to red and tangerine splotches on Doppler radar as the skies opened and the thunder ripped like cannon fire through the stone and glass canyons of Manhattan. On Hudson and Tribeca, Nicky Heat slowed down to avoid splashing the diners huddled under umbrellas outside Nobu, praying in vain for open cabs to get them uptown in the downpour. She turned onto Rook Street and pulled the police car into an open space in a loading zone up the block from his building. You still pissed at me? He said. No more than usual. She put the car in park. I just get quiet after I clear a case. It's like I've been turned inside out. Rook hesitated, something on his mind. Anyway, thanks for the ride and all this. No problem. Frankenstein lightning hit so close that the strobe flash lit their faces the same time as the thunder crack. Tiny hailstones began to pepper the roof. If you see the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, said Rook, duck. She gave up a thin laugh that turned into a yawn. Sorry. Sleepy? No, tired. I'm way too cranked to sleep. They sat listening to the storm rage. A car crept past with water up to its hubcaps. At last he broke the silence. Look, I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I just don't know how to play this. We work together, well, sort of. We slept together, most definitely. We have smoking hot sex one time, but soon afterwards, don't try holding hands, not even in the relative privacy of a taxicab. I'm trying to figure the rules. This isn't yin and yang, it's more like yin and yank. The past few days I've been going, okay, she doesn't mix the hot sex and romance so well with the single-mindedness of the police work. So it gets me wondering, is the solution for me to give up our working relationship? Stop my magazine research so we can... Nicky grabbed him into a deep kiss. Then she pulled away and said, "Will you shut up?" Before he could say yes, she grabbed Rook again, throwing her mouth back onto his. He wrapped his arms around her. She undid her seatbelt and drew closer to him. Their faces and clothes became drenched in sweat. Another flash of lightning lit up the car through windows fogged by the heat of their bodies. Nicky kissed his neck and then his ear, and then she whispered to him, "Do you really want to know what I think?" He didn't speak, he only nodded. The low rumble of the thunder finally reached them. When it tailed off, Nicky sat up, reached for the keys, and killed the ignition. "Here's what I think. I think after all this, I've got energy to burn. Do you have any limes and salt and anything fun in a bottle?" "I do." "Then I think you should invite me up and see what we can get going tonight. Bite your tongue. Just wait." They got out of the car and made a dash toward his building. Halfway there, Nicky took his hand and ran alongside him, giggling as they raced together up the sidewalk. They stopped at his front steps, breathless, and kissed each other, two lovers for the night getting soaked in the cooling rain. This concludes Heatwave. Please visit our website, www.tantor.com, for more information on our growing library of unabridged audiobooks and to take advantage of special offers, or call toll-free 877-7-TANTOR to request a catalog.